Okay, so when I was reading In Void Palestine the first time, I kept on noticing the repetition of like different people being like in within that area of the world,
Yeah.
such as like the Babylonians, uh, Muhammad Dorish we found,
Yeah.
Gilgamesh and Caesar.
There's a lot of geography.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just found how it was interesting how like the shift went from that to the New World with the Native Americans. So,
I think, since it's about Palestine, could the treatment of the Native Americans be related to the treatment of Palestinians? Since this was written in like, I think probably the 70s, there was a lot of violence going on in Palestine, just like there is now. So
Yeah.
maybe that could be a
yeah,
parallel.
kind of just like relating it to people who were slaughtered for no reason.
Yeah, like when he says the land I come from, they also jumped before they arrived in tower in ships. Like it's talking about like when they came and settled America.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think he's like comparing that to Palestine
So,
today.
so is he also arguing that people aren't being treated like humans over there? Because the poem ends as "I am a man, and now I know I would rather die a poet than a warrior, tattoo, and tomahawk." Would he be comparing himself with that group then?
It could be.
I think it could be.
Okay, so
So I think if you want to make the comparison that people coming in on ships coming to like the New World and all that, you could say that, and it's kind of out of the blue, I guess, if you're a Native American, you could say like that the Jews coming to Israel was kind of out of
Yeah.
nowhere and kind of invaded their own home.
well, it's a little different just because like you had all the people fleeing at the same time. Like you can make that comparison
Yeah.
because people were fleeing Europe
Yeah.
because of religious persecution and genocide. So
There's a huge
It's
emphasis
art.
on death throughout the whole poem when he talks about like bones and dried up and graves.
Yeah.
So I just like feel that throughout it. There's like a dark,
He also like mentions diseases like smallpox.
yeah.
yeah, kind of like they brought in problems that weren't already there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Sure.
So when talking about like the sun made its symbol of the bones of my tribe, do you think that's just like a reference to like all the Jews that like came in and then like exiled people, causing like the crisis there now?
I think
World War
Okay.
I and World War II and the Depression. By the time this was written, really looking over the first scene and the first days of writing here, started with people with
when he says, "I feel the wildflowers, all the grasses, and insects singing to me. My sacred dead is the dust of restless plains I come from, and I love it. And I love when it gets into my eyes, my mouth, telling me of the roads behind and ahead." That's very descriptive of like his surroundings and how the narrator Komanyaka feels about like his surroundings and
Yeah.
how in tune he feels with a certain area. So that could kind of be like his feelings on like what he calls home or like his origins.
Yeah. Just kind of like relating it, making it more human
Yeah.
for us to understand.
Yeah. And then right after that, he follows it up. He says, "I go back to broken treaties and smallpox, the irony of barbed wire." So it like makes a really big like switch there from like
The really nice,
Yeah.
peaceful,
to like all bad things.
which I can also see like. I just see the huge comparison between Israel and like
Yeah.
the New World because like you see currently you have Israeli settlements and it's just like green luscious valleys on one side and then on the other side of the wall it's desert.
Yeah,
There's nothing left.
that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, especially like, I mean, a lot of the Israeli conflict is like the last form of physical colonization in the world. So it's
And it's just like a territorial dispute between like if you recognize this or not. Which is really like the Europeans when they came over here, like they didn't recognize the tribes as actually legitimate states.
yeah,
Yeah,
Because
they just took what they wanted and like
They
moved
weren't
them.
Yeah, they weren't actually like, okay, you're not really unified.
Yeah.
Kind of like the same way with over there, where it's like you were a colony, you had no voice originally.
Yeah.
So, also, what do you guys think about like some of the what we would consider derogatory terms now, like the redskin included within this poem?
I think that's more to like put down, or is like as a form to as like a allusion to the violence and destruction that comes with all these types of change.
Kind of showing like the hate between
Yeah.
people.
Yep. Like, what do you think he means by like that whole like line where he says, "My coyote heart is an old renegade redskin, a noble savage, still Lakota, and I knew the bow before the arch." Because I read that and I don't really understand what he's like trying to say.
I feel like after reading that, it's like one of those situations where it's like everything's normal, and you
Yeah.
like you would be categorized as those things by other people,
Uh-huh.
but you don't see yourself as that. Like noble savage, like no one
Yeah.
ever considers themselves a savage,
Yeah.
let alone being a noble savage.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a really good point, Jay.
What do you think, Adam?
I feel like I agree with that. Like there is no pride in being called a savage, but like this is not from their point of view. Like if that makes sense, this isn't from the so-called savages' point of view. So they can't really express their points. So like this is our interpretation. Well, not ours obviously, but the
Well, I
the
feel
author.
like
Yeah.
I feel like the author kind of is having a lot in common with the people that he's writing about. I guess like he could.
Like he's putting himself in their shoes, or like he
Yeah,
actually is.
I feel like,
he's like
yeah,
he's trying to
Well,
like
he-
understand their situation.
Not to mention he is an African American
Yeah,
living
that's very
in
true.
Louisiana. He
Yeah.
should be able to understand like some of the prejudices that go on.
Definitely.
I know that Kumiaka grew up during the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of that is.
playing into
And
effect.
he also served in the military, so he probably like
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
He went,
Vietnam.
yeah, he went to Vietnam.
so like there wasn't there like a lot of problems in the military too with like race and stuff.
Well, by that time, Army was already desegregated.
Yeah,
But it's like
but I'm sure there's.
Yeah, there's
you
no
still have
problem.
like, not to mention like during the Vietnam War, you had the Confederate flag flying with like battalions.
Yeah.
Just because it was like adopted by the American like Army.
There's just a lot of that stuff gives you meaning in a place where there's a lot of danger and
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
That's true.
So my question is, who is Judge Dundee?
Yeah, and
Like-
Chief Standing Bear.
I think Chief Standing Bear could be. I think that might be a. Yeah, if you want to look that up, I think that sounds.
I'm gonna
like
look that up real quick.
That might be a Lakota chief because it says
Yeah.
Lakota, so that could be. I have no idea who Judge Dundee is.
He could just be made up. and just-
Yeah.
So
Analyses of the poem.
Judge Dundee was a Nebraskan judge. He was born in 1830.
So does that give us a time period for this?
Yeah. So like,
No.
So like what he's talking about for like this portion though of like Lakota and all that would have been during maybe like he was a member of the Nebraska Territorial Council from 1858 to 1862, and actually the very ending relates to a trial dating from 1879,
Yeah.
where Judge Dundee ruled Standing Bear and the other Ponca were people who were able to bring petitions for habeas corpus, which is kind of a big thing. Yeah, that's a really huge step for them.
Yeah. So that's like a major like
Shift in like our relation with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, during the time that this was written, was there? I mean, is there any parallel between that in like Palestine and Israel?
Could it just be between like they are recognized like in the United States, like they were recognized as people living there.
Yeah,
But-
this could be like the first time that this was really brought to view
Yeah.
heavily.
And it
Yeah.
was like they were considered like people living there, but they weren't really like the citizens.
So that case like made them citizens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like, or giving like the foreground to becoming citizens of the
Yeah.
United
So
States,
it gave them like more rights.
which would like create them later on to become like that could be like the parallel. They're waiting on Palestine to do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Snow Tiger. I was really confused by this poem. I really didn't understand a lot of it
Yeah,
until
neither
like
did I.
the very end, where he says, "If cornered in your head by cries from a cave in another season, you can't forget in this landscape a pretty horse translates into a man holding a gun."
Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
I kind of
Pretty
thought,
hard
about,
to grasp from the ground up.
and it's like I'm kind of thinking about like his time in Vietnam,
Yeah.
because like you had like all the cave systems, like you had rat tunnelers
That's true.
who had to go into those situations, and like you would see things that didn't actually what they were.
And with the whole part where it's
So you-
talking about like born to fight your young,
Yeah, 'cause
born to
that,
fight other creatures.
Yeah.
yeah, kind of like you're fighting your own man
Mhm.
for something that's not all that worth
So
it.
like, are you saying like in the last thing, like those like rat tunnelers, they like think they see like a horse, but then they like go up and it's actually like an
A
enemy
guy with
soldier.
a, yeah, like it appears to be a horse, like,
Yeah.
but it's actually a man with a gun.
Yeah, I think that could be it. That makes sense.
Yeah, you could say like that a horse is like a very powerful creature,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
horses can also be like a symbol of imperialism, because a lot of areas around the world, especially the New World, didn't really have a lot of horses. Like the Aztecs were decimated by the conquistadors on their horses.
Yeah.
They were really fast.
They are really fast.
He's really into violence with
Yeah.
both of these poems.
Yeah,
which
and
is
it is a lot of violence. But like when he was like writing these, there was a lot of violence going on.
Yeah,
in
he's
the
just
world.
reflecting his time.
Yeah. And I do think this could be about Vietnam too, because aren't like tigers like more of like an Asian like animal?
I think,
It's
yeah,
like, yeah.
I don't feel like that's a very Vietnamese thing, but
Well, at the same time, it was like, it's more of like, not really an African thing. You don't really find them here in North and South America.
Yeah. Oh, I can't look anything up. It's not going to record.
But it's like, I kind of imagine that being like a sign of power, like,
Yeah.
this is us.
Yeah.
what could the snow represent?
Kind of like rebirth. So out of like all the decimation he sees in Vietnam, there's still a chance of rebirth
Yeah.
to create something powerful.
Like just snow over all the violence.
Yeah.
Start over.
Maybe that's why you chose the Snow Tiger to write about, because snow is something that's pure.
Or
Yeah.
you could also say like snow is also like a time of frozen, like stuff being dead and gone, and waiting for
Yeah,
something
that's
new.
very true.
Not to mention, like, it's not like water, because like water can wash away like the blood that happens in combat.
And water's
Snow-
going to like
And snow takes a while to
purify.
melt and
Yeah.
get around.
So it's like it's gonna be that kind of dirtyish red color.
Yeah.
So this is like the time before water, the time before purity, like when everything is just still and dead.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like there's a chance of purity later on, but like right now there's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of being corrupted by everything going on around it.
Okay.
Okay, so
I think that it's interesting the part where he talks about if you may ask if hunger is the only passion, as you again lose yourself. I think that's really a statement on mankind and like our desires, because when we want something we will fight for it, and
Yeah.
that's what I think he means when he's talking about hunger and losing yourself. How like we'll be caught up in like a whole war over who knows what. Maybe we wanted oil or something, and now we're going to go to war over it.
Yeah.
Like I think he's trying to say that we should stop and we should look at the big picture. Like, what are we
Yeah.
actually accomplishing here by fighting, by losing ourselves?
yeah, we're not really advancing within our human race,
Yeah.
and we're not really doing anything productive.
Like fighting's not always like what you need to do
Yeah.
to like make progress.
So can we tie those in with like this poem with the envoy of Palestine saying like there is like horrible things happening in the world, but we don't have to result into
Yeah.
violent actions.
Yeah, like you can be more diplomatic about all this stuff.
Yeah, like you can be reasonable without getting emotional.
Yeah.
So
I feel that that's a problem. Like a lot of times in like trials and things, like
Yeah.
how if it's someone who's like associated with them, like they have to leave, like they can't be part of the trial because like they would get
Bias.
yeah, they would get biased.
Yeah.
And so I think that's tying back
And how
with this whole thing here.
Yeah, and like when they like select the jury, like they have to go through like multiple like screenings, like find out like their whole life to make sure they don't have any ties to like any of the people involved.
Yeah.
Because mankind, like, they can't separate like business from emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So.
And like, I think like in the second thing where he says there's always a mother or some other creature born to fight for her young, he's saying like that's like another thing, like we're always ready to fight, but we don't seem to be ready to like not
Come up with like a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
We'd rather just like beat it like ourselves and just like not look at like
Yeah.
what the main problem is.
like they're always born to fight, but they're never born to
Resolve.
yeah.
Yeah. So, in that case, then, what about this section in in this glacial quiet? Nothing moves except then a flash of eyes and nerves. Like, how would that tie in with the rest of the poem?
Could that be like someone dying?
Could it?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't really understand that. Like,
In glacial.
Maybe that's a birth thing because it's talking about like how everything's still and quiet, the whole glacial thing, and then a flash of something. Maybe it could be a new birth, like
That's
when
true, a
someone's
flash
born.
of eyes and
yeah, that their
nerves.
eyes
Yeah.
open up for the first time, something like that.
Like, you're actually becoming conscious for your first time.
Yeah.
Even though you don't understand or remember it.
That could be it.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation. At least.
So, does that kind of like bring a hope then?
Yeah, I
That
think
yeah.
it's a new day, a new dawn.
Yeah.
But then, and that's funny though, because then like if that is hope, like then the last one just completely like destroys that hope.
Yeah.
Because he's like, then you see a pretty horse, but then it's a man holding a gun, and there goes all that hope because
You had all this life, but you
Yeah.
ruined it.
yeah,
What you thought was something else turns out to be like the wrong.
Yeah.
Just to focus on this like first stanza like on the entire poem, like there is so much.
I do like the part where he's speaking right before that about glacial quiet and nothing moving. I think that really enforces our previous theory about the whole snow and how that's a period of like where nothing happens.
yeah.
A dormant.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I like the word dormant, but I think glacial is a really good word for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be like a very monumentous thing, and if you want to say the tip of the iceberg, you don't really know what else lies below. You
Yeah,
can only see
it
what's
definitely
up
makes it
front.
all seem bigger.
Yeah,
That's true.
and then putting quiet right next to that just makes it seem very eerie. Like it's a giant concept or a large thing, and
Yeah.
you just don't know what it's gonna do.
Just kind of like this big event, but you don't know when it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I also noticed, I like right after he talks about the mother of some other creature born to fight for young, he says, "But crawl out of your hide, walk upright like a man." So he's like saying like always resorting to fighting is like childish almost. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true.
Like,
Not to mention, like, we get into our shell
yeah.
and we just become very closed-minded to
Yeah.
every
You
possibility.
just like
Who is he talking to in this? Could he be talking to like his child when he's like he's telling him to grow
Well,
up?
he's
in
asking
that
a question when in the first line.
Yeah.
He says, "Ghost son, half hidden. Where did you go?"
yeah.
That'd
I
just
think
be
that's
like a reference to him, like, asking people, like, what happened to us? Like,
Yeah.
how did we get to this place?
Yeah, what is a ghost son?
yeah, like I think that's weird how he calls it a ghost son because like
Yeah.
ghosts are already kind of hidden, and then he says it's half hidden,
Yeah.
so kind of like is a double effect there. Like
Kind of like Paranormal Activity, where you just kind of see, like, there's something there, but you don't really see
Yeah.
it.
I think the opposite because to us the ghosts are invisible. So if it's only half hidden, then it's visible, right?
that's true. That
That is true.
I didn't think about it like that. Yeah, like maybe like we can see it, but we don't understand it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So kind of like it's naturally occurring, but we just don't have the mental capacity yet to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.